March elections in Arkansas and Oklahoma are fast approaching, and we're here to keep you informed before you go to the polls.
We're breaking down important dates and deadlines you need to know and the races that matter the most. Here at home,
so people just need to run to the polls.
And across the country.
It comes down to a two-person contest.
Hear from your local candidates
in our Commitment 2024 coverage.
And thank you so much for joining us for this Commitment 2024 special. I'm Yuna Lee.
And I'm Brennan Evans. We're committed to keeping you up to date on the candidates and the important issues before you head to the polls.
That's right, and we are counting down the days until the March 5th elections in Arkansas and Oklahoma. In Arkansas, March 5th is the day of presidential primaries, general primaries, and nonpartisan general elections. Early voting began today. The deadline to request an absentee ballot by fax, mail, or email is Tuesday, February 27th. To request an absentee ballot in person, you or an authorized agent or designated bearer needs to do that by March 1st. In Oklahoma, the presidential preferential primaries are the only item on the ballot on March 5th.
Yeah, Oklahomans voted in special elections and on Board of Education seats earlier this month. Early voting for the March 5th election starts February 29th and it runs through March 2nd. And if you're looking to vote absentee, here's what you need to know.
Arkansas Secretary of State John Thurston tells us that if you're voting by absentee ballot, you need to include a copy of your ID when you mail in or return that ballot. And now if you're voting through an absentee ballot or forget your ID or are unable to make a copy, you can still vote, but you do have to present your ID to your county clerk's office or your ballot to be counted, for your ballot to be counted. Now the deadline to do that is March 11th, and we talked to Secretary Thurston about the recent post-election audit.
Here in Arkansas, we do post-election audits. The State Board of Election did one the last general election where we hand counted over 40,000 ballots, and out of those 40,000 plus ballots, there was one ballot that was not counted. So that's a pretty good, I guess, statistic. It's virtually almost 100% accurate.
Well, the audit that Secretary Thurston talked about was conducted by hand counting machine tabulated ballots from 15 randomly selected counties. The audit required the counties had verifying populations and were in different parts of the state. You can find the full interview with Secretary Thurston on 4029tv.com.
Well, March 5th, known as Super Tuesday because presidential primaries are happening in 15 states and one territory on that day. Super Tuesday is the night with the largest number of delegates available. However, the earliest a candidate could mathematically win enough delegates to be their party's nominee, well, that's March 12th. So far, Donald Trump has won the GOP primary in 3 states and the Virgin Islands. Meanwhile, President Biden has won the Democratic primary in 3 states. Well, the South Carolina Republican presidential primary is this Saturday.
That's right, February 24th, and we talked to former Arkansas governor and former presidential candidate Asa Hutchinson about the state of the race right now.
It comes down to a two-person contest in South Carolina.
Hutchinson says even though Trump is leading in the polls, Nikki Haley has been working to minimize the gap in her home state of South Carolina.
It's a question of how much she can gain between now and this Saturday. And the test will not be whether she wins or not, but the test is how strong is her showing and whether she beats expectations.
And South Carolina is just the first rigorous step for Haley leading into Super Tuesday.
Donald Trump has a lot of strength here in Arkansas, but there's also a sense that can we win with him in November? And while he shows strength now, what's it really going to look like when the trials start and with the ongoing saga that he has in the courtroom, and whether that changes the dynamics? And that's what a lot of the voters are looking at.
Hutchinson says there are also concerns about President Biden's cognitive health after a special counsel report described him as an elderly man with poor memory.
And of course, the Biden administration pushed back heavily against the language in that report and wonder why is that necessary to be in there. But the fact is it is in there.
ABC News reports that 86% of Americans think President Biden is too old to serve as president. And that poll showed 62% thought the same of former President Donald Trump. Hutchinson says even though it's a long shot, if there were ever a year for a third-party candidate, it's 2024.
There's such dissatisfaction with what's happening in Washington, with what the two major political parties is doing right now, then that gives rise to a strong third-party opportunity. So a lot to be seen and determined in the coming months.
Now, the race for the White House isn't the only big race affecting Arkansans.
And also on the ballot, 3 candidates are running for U.S. House District 3 this year. Republican incumbent Representative Steve Womack, former State Senator Clint Penzo, and Democrat Kalen Draper. Now, since Draper is the only Democrat, the Republican winner will face Draper in November.
Yeah, we talked to these candidates in January on 4029 News On the Record, and we asked them what issues were most important to them.
We think that the border security issue is clearly one of our top 2 or 3 issues, and we need to fix it now. And we were well on our way to doing that during the Trump administration, but the Biden policies are a lot different. Bottom line is you got to stop the influx. You got to make a commitment that you're not going to welcome hordes of people into your country in an undocumented way like has been going on for the last 3 years.
The border is probably one of the biggest issues. When I've been at the state level, I've ran a lot of legislation dealing with human trafficking. We have a big issue in Arkansas with sex trafficking and labor trafficking. I think the southern border being open has caused that problem to be worse.
And the Dobbs decision came out, and they leaked that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. I was in the middle of IVF treatment. That was very scary because I didn't know if we could continue treatment. So I'm running for office because I want to see change happen, and I want to see policy that's bettering the lives of people in our district.
Now to Democrats in Arkansas.
Yeah, we talked to former gubernatorial candidate Chris Jones about some of those candidates since he now works to get more Democrats into office.
And here's the deal. Republicans have a supermajority. And
right now, Republicans hold 82 of the 100 seats in the state house. But Chris Jones says he's been working with a group called Vortex to try and change the course of politics in Arkansas.
When I ran my election 2 years ago, we had the fewest number of statewide candidates for office on the Democratic side in probably over 2 decades. But now we have the highest number of candidates in over a decade.
Jones says Vortex focuses on the 4 congressional districts.
Step 1 is to make sure that someone is on the ballot that they can vote for, that they believe in, that's a quality candidate.
He says the group went across the state to try and find those candidates.
We had over 80 nominations. And the 76 odd people that we did not nominate, we encouraged them to run for down ballot races, for school board, for JP, for state legislature. And the Democratic Party of Arkansas did a lot of work leading up to the filing deadline.
But getting a candidate on the ballot doesn't mean their job is over.
Now we're doing the work to make sure they have strong campaigns. The other piece of it is talking about the issues that matter to Arkansans.
Jones says having a more robust primary makes all the candidates better.
You see that candidates are actually working together, whereas you didn't see that as much in the past.
So all the seats in the Arkansas House of Representatives are up for grabs this election cycle.
And we are breaking down the races and talking to the candidates in a handful of Northwest Arkansas and River Valley races as we continue our commitment coverage. All the seats in the Arkansas House of Representatives are on the ballot this year. This is because members of the state house serve 2-year terms.
You are correct, Yuna. So the state house has 100 members elected from 100 districts. And many of the races have just one Democrat and one Republican running for the office. And those races will be decided during the general elections in November. Only 5 contested primaries in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley.
And House District 14, which covers parts of Centerton and Benton County. District 15 covering parts of Rogers. District 17 covering Salem, Springs, and Gentry. District 24 covering parts of Washington and Crawford County. District 51 covering part of Fort Smith.
All right, let's go to Rogers, where 2 Democrats are running for House District 15. So Stephanie Funk, Aaron Underhill, they're vying to face incumbent state representative John P. Carr. That'll be in November. Now, we talked to Funk and Underhill earlier this month. Funk is a businesswoman. She says one of her biggest priorities, education.
The LEARNS Act is an important piece of legislation. It clearly has some flaws, and I think both sides agree that it has some flaws. And so it's going to take somebody who, it's going to take a lot of somebodies who can really work together to figure out what the best path forward is for the LEARNS Act and for our kiddos.
So meanwhile, Underhill says one of his focuses, if elected, would be reducing taxes.
I'm noticing that the taxes in Benton County is much too high, and people are just having a hard time getting by, making ends meet. And I'd like to figure out how to make a plan to create better infrastructure, more affordable housing.
In some cases, the March primary elections will actually decide who wins the office. This is because some of the races had candidates filed for one party but not the other. House District 17 is an example of this. District 17 covers Salem Springs and Gentry. The seat is currently held by Republican Delia Hack, who is serving her second term. She did not file for re-election. Running for the seat now are two Republicans, Randy Torres and Jeremy Kreiner. Torres says he is a president for Generations Bank in Northwest Arkansas. He says he understands the needs of his prospective constituents.
If we can create the infrastructure in our communities, whether it's the rural areas that don't have it, it enables companies to be created, small businesses. And so I think that's going to be continually, especially in our western Benton County area, it's going to be imperative that we look into that and invest into that.
Jeremy Kreiner is a former fire chief who says that he is ready to continue his public service.
My desire is truly to help people. I see day in and day out what the real people of this district go through behind the veil of Facebook, behind the Instagram posts. We're responding to their emergencies day in and day out, and we understand the true issues that are facing folks in this district. And I feel like I've got a good read on what those challenges that they face are.
All right, let's go to the River Valley, where three candidates are running for District 51. So incumbent Republican State Representative Cindy Crawford, challenged by Jeff Burks. Now, the winner will face Democratic candidate Jane Ellen Udaj-Kuchka in November. Now, Crawford says she hopes to cut taxes even more in her third term in office.
The governor has a plan, and that plan is to have zero income tax, state income tax, taken out of your checks. And that would be a great boost to our economy. And that is one of the main focuses that we will be looking at in the 2025 session.
As for Jeff Burks, he says he wants to improve the way that government accepts certain documents.
I've talked with a number of folks that says that certain areas of our government only accept paper. And so they have to print off 400 pages and somehow get that to them, and the state does not have to pay a fee or anything for that. And I don't know, I find that kind of, not necessarily a good thing.
So as far as the other primary House races in our area, Districts 14 and 24 both feature contests between two Republicans looking to face a Democratic challenger in November.
Running for District 14, Joshua Hagan and Nick Burks. Hagan says he's a small business owner who volunteers as a Little League coach and serves on the Centerton Utility Commission. Burks says he's a sixth-generation Arkansan who worked in Senator Tom Cotton's office. The winner will face Democrat Jacob Malloy in November.
And as for District 24, Ty Bates, well, he says he's a firearms instructor and a former firefighter. Meanwhile, his opponent, Brad Hall, says he's a local rancher and small business owner. So the winner here will face Democrat Ryan Chospe in November. And there are two candidates running for prosecuting attorney in Benton County. This is a nonpartisan race.
That's right. And candidate Sarah Phillips is a former sex crimes prosecutor who now works for Walmart. Brian Sexton is currently the chief deputy prosecutor in Benton County.
Yeah, and the current prosecutor, Joshua Robinson, who was appointed by Arkansas Governor Sarah Sanders when Nathan Smith resigned. So Smith stepped down last fall after 9 years as a county prosecutor. And there are a handful of questions on the ballot in communities all across our area.
That's right. In Centerton, voters are considering an extension of a current 1% sales and use tax. The tax would be used to refinance bonds to build a new community center and make improvements to the city's streets and parks. The mayor tells us this will not increase taxes. In Bella Vista now, voters will decide on a millage increase to support police officers' pension plans, and city officials say the improvements would cost the average Bella Vista homeowner $20 per year.
And people in the Avoca Fire District, they're going to be voting on a possible increase in their annual dues. So the Avoca Fire Department, it covers Avoca as well as parts of rural Benton County near places like Garfield and Rogers. So if passed, everyone living in that district will have their annual dues increased from $50 a year to $125 a year. Now, Avoca city officials say dues haven't increased in decades, but the cost of equipping the department has. And in Greenland, people will decide whether or not to legalize the Sunday off-premise sale of alcohol, as well as voting on 2 land annexations. More races are impacting voters across the natural state.
That's right. Here from the 4 candidates running for Chief Justice in Arkansas's highest court. Next.
Hey, welcome back. Arkansas judges are selected in nonpartisan elections that are set for March 5th.
There are 4 candidates running for the Arkansas Supreme Court Chief Justice position, and we spoke with all 4 candidates: Justice Rhonda Wood, Justice Barbara Webb, and Justice Karen Baker, and former State Representative Jay Martin.
I think that I've shown that I have the right judicial leadership and the right experience to be Chief Justice. The world is changing rapidly, as we know, and it's important that we have someone in that position that has shown the right temperament, the right leadership experience, and that can move the court forward to really serve the citizens of the state. The court is a consumer relations business. We may not realize that, and our job is there to serve the citizens and make the court more efficient for everyone in the state of Arkansas. And I just feel called to serve, and that I'm the one with the right experience.
The Chief Justice has several functions. One is to speak for the court at certain times, to swear a governor in, a newly elected governor in. That Chief Justice also has administrative duties, overseeing a state agency, the administrative office of the courts. And so there's over 100 employees that you oversee as well, and do budgets and deal with the legislature and work with the Bar Association very closely. And I think my background uniquely qualifies me for that position.
I think experience in this role counts a lot, and I have been well, clearly the most experienced candidate for this position. I've been on the court more than twice as long as any other candidate, and I am sure that in the end, experience is what matters.
I had the opportunity to lead in the legal profession. I've led a small law firm, running a small business, having to make payroll, getting to represent lots of Arkansans, small businesses. And I've also been a leader in the legislature. I was majority leader back in the 84th General Assembly. So I have a lot of leadership. I'm an outsider to the court, though. I've never been a judge. I think our outgoing Chief Justice was also an outsider to the Supreme Court. And I think that's a good role to play in leading the Supreme Court, to be the outsider to the court.
Well, the winner will replace retiring Chief Justice Dan Kemp. If a runoff is necessary for a judicial race, it'll be held on November 5th, the same day as the November general election.
All right, all good info there. We want you to stay with us. We're just getting started. We continue our commitment coverage with more important deadlines coming up.
And welcome back. And to recap, in Arkansas, March 5th is the day of the presidential primaries, general primaries, and nonpartisan general elections. Early voting began today. The deadline to request an absentee ballot by fax, mail, or email, it's Tuesday, February 27th. To request an absentee ballot in person, you're an authorized agent or designated bearer needs to do that by March 5th.
And in Oklahoma, the presidential preferential primaries, only item on the ballot March 5th. You know, early voting for the March 5th election starts February 29th. runs through March 2nd. So in Oklahoma, it starts a little bit later, ends a little bit earlier. But like we said, you know, early voting, those March primaries did begin today in Arkansas.
That's right. And in Benton County, the election coordinator said that she expects about 1,000 voters to come out today. She says they usually see a rush of voters right when the polls open as people vote before work, and also busy around lunchtime. Still, early voting tends to have less of a wait time than on Election Day.
Early voting is exactly what Election Day is, other than you can get it out of the way.
If I didn't have time now, you know, I mean, the day was going good. I managed to squeeze it in.
We also talked to election officials down in the River Valley. The Sebastian County clerk had some advice for voters.
We want everyone to know that we are open on Saturdays. So I'd encourage everyone to, you know, come out and cast your vote. Make yourself known.
And of course, we have a link on our website to help you find a polling location that's near you. You can even view sample ballots as well.
That's right. And in order to win most of the elections in our area, a candidate needs to secure 50% plus one vote.
Yeah, most races in our area only have 2 candidates running for the office, but some races have 3 or more candidates. So if no candidate secures more than 50% of those votes, there will be a runoff election, and that will happen April 2nd.
That's right. And as a reminder, most of the elections happening now are primary elections. The general election is Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting starts October 21st. The deadline to register is Monday, October 7th.
Yeah, no. Just getting started when it comes to election season.
That's right. It's the beginning of the election season, and we'll be here all throughout with our commitment coverage. So thank you so much for joining us for the Commitment 2024 special.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you can join Yuna every Sunday morning. 4029 News on the Record. It's part of my routine. We talk to area lawmakers, the change makers in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. We do it every week. Talk about the issues that impact you.
And we want to know what issues are most important to you as a voter for 2024. Email us at ontherecord@4029tv.com with questions and concerns for area lawmakers.
Yeah, you can always just go online to our website, 4029tv.com. We have more political coverage, including more of several of the candidates you just heard from. Yeah, election coverage doesn't end there either. Nope. Join us on primary election night, March 5th, for all your election results as they come into the newsroom.
Yeah, we're just getting started. And of course, we'll have the results on 4029 News Sunrise the very next morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a good night.